Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of It's Worth a Pilot. I'm Dain Drummer, this is my friend David Bushnell.
What's up, guys?
And we're here to talk to you today about the show Homecoming. It's an Amazon original, so if you do feel the need to go watch it, make sure you have Amazon Prime. Believe me, there's plenty of other good stuff on there, but this isn't really one of them. David, go ahead and give us the rundown.
Yeah, so this is another Amazon Prime special. They've been really cranking them out all summer long. Came out just a couple months ago in 2019, early summer. The premise of the show essentially is you have Heidi Bergman, played by Julia Roberts. She's a caseworker at the Homecoming Transitional Support Center, a Geist, that's one of the companies in the show, a Geist group facility helping soldiers transition back into civilian life. It's directed by the guys that created the podcast of the same name, Eli Horowitz and Michael Bloomberg. And when they transitioned to do the film version, or the show version rather, they brought on Sam Esmail, which you may know as the director from Mr. Robot.
So first of all, the podcast, the original podcast, is a very good podcast. It really is. Like I enjoyed every last bit of it. The creators of it did a really good job, and it's done by Gimlet Media, so it has a bunch of money behind it, and it was put to good use. They had really great cast members like David Schwimmer and Catherine Keener and David Cross, and these actors really fit their roles perfectly. And, you know, it could be one of those situations where it's like, oh, I like the book better than I like the movie because I watched the book, or I read the book first. But I really don't think it is. And they do actually a really good job of staying pretty word for word to the podcast on a lot of this. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the podcast creators were on the show. But when it comes down to it, I just don't think it translated well at all. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff to go through on this, and unfortunately, a lot of it's negative.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It sucks, man.
So one of the first things that'll jump out at you when you're watching this pilot is that some of the shots are shot in kind of a grainy widescreen view, where the rest of the show is in full screen, and it's kind of confusing because the grainy kind of widescreen shots are all present day. Yeah. Where the full screen shots are all, a couple years in the past.
And without giving away like how they explain that, which eventually you get an answer for why that happens, and it's painfully underwhelming. Literally, the first time I watched it, I sat there and messed with my input settings because I thought my TV was screwed up. But in this show's case, I really don't see you guys going past the pilot. If you really have to, go watch the pilot and see for yourself that it's kind of garbo. I just had a lot of complaints about it, man. The screen thing is only the tip of the iceberg.
It was just infuriating to me. I've watched the pilot twice now, and it just grates on me for whatever reason.
I thought a lot of the shots were really pointless too. Like those long running shots where she's on the phone with her boss, and then they're talking about the office space and how they have stuff cleared out.
Yeah.
And then it pans into the next room where they put all the office stuff. It's like unnecessary.
Both verbal and visual exposition.
Yeah. And these are
so much of it.
And these are shots that you get when you're taking something that was originally created for a audio only media, and you have to put visual to it.
Yeah. No,
it's rough, but I think they could have got away with a lot of tight face shots of Julia Roberts' horse face and just gotten out of there.
Yeah, there was a lot of issues with the pilot. Starting from the top, I found in my experience, especially I noticed it a lot more the second time. A lot of the dialogue just seems really, really rough and kind of tense.
Definitely.
And it didn't flow well, and I wonder.
Tell me which ones what pieces of dialogue really got to you? Who were the characters that were speaking in these dialogues?
So it was when Walter Cruz, the soldier, especially, like, less so when he's talking with Julia Roberts' character, with Heidi, but especially when they're doing the kind of like not group therapy, but like there's this one scene in the pilot where they're working on job interviews and how to do a job interview, and it just felt super kind of canned, and there just felt really flat, that entire scene. But even still, you're just like, that was kind of just a blah scene, and the entire time, again, it just felt like the dialogue wasn't quite there. Like, they could have refined it a little more, made it flow a little more. It felt really choppy and just kind of terse.
Amazon is taking a lot of chances right now, and I'm really happy about that, because I want new stuff, and I want competitors for Netflix, and I support it, and like, I will watch the shit out of some Amazon stuff.
Yeah.
The podcast was a lot shorter episodes. It was like 20-minute episodes, 15-minute episodes, and there wasn't a lot of them. So in order to turn that into a 30 to 45-minute episode, like, how many episodes are in the season? 8?
Yeah, something like that. 8
episodes, like, you have to add content. And when you're adding content to add content for content's sake, it's pointless, and it's not going to do anything, especially when the content you're adding does nothing. It doesn't progress the story. It doesn't give you more insight into the characters. It does nothing. All that scene did in the group therapy was allow them to go talk about the scene where Walter Cruz is like, I want to slam my face into a corner of a table, which they then don't really go into after that.
Yeah.
So dumb.
And there's a lot of useless exposition throughout the episode. You get probably a lot more of the backstory of like random characters, like Anthony's backstory. You know that Anthony works for Keebler. And
this pisses me off so fucking much, because in the podcast, Anthony is literally a character that's there only to help Heidi realize what she eventually realizes, which is she's been given the old switcheroo.
It's the old switcheroo.
Without giving anything away. But Anthony is there to help her realize that. And they don't even, in the podcast, it doesn't even show them living together, ever.
Yeah, well, and additionally, just in the show, like, we get that backstory about him. We kind of get the sense of who he is as a character. We don't get that with Heidi or with Walter until they begin the sessions later on, and those are the main characters.
Yeah,
like,
you know more about this like very pointless side character than you do about the two main characters.
And I get that it's supposed to be a psychological thriller, but
is it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's the least thrilling television show I've ever watched in my life.
That's not an understatement.
The Cat in the Hat, where Mike Myers was the cat, was more thrilling than this. Where the guy who played Beans and Even Stevens hits him in the balls with a baseball bat, that was thrilling. This show, terrible.
It's unfortunate too, because when I was watching the trailers for the show, it looked like it had a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And then judging
it does, as a podcast.
and so watching the show was kind of a really big letdown. Again, so you don't get much character development in that first episode, and you don't get much of their backstory either. You don't know what Heidi's really doing there. You don't know what Walter's doing there. But more importantly than that, like, you have a whole essentially barracks full of soldiers. And like, you get to meet one of Walter Cruz's buddies, Schreier. You meet him very briefly, and he goes on to play a larger role in the story, but you know virtually nothing about him. And then any of the other soldiers that are in the homecoming facility, you know absolutely nothing about, and you will learn nothing about them. There's so many other characters in there, and that they focus on just these two characters, and at the same time, you learn virtually nothing about them. You know Walter's coming out, trying to transition out of service back to civilian life, and you know that Heidi Bergman is the case manager, and that's about all episode 1 is.
I think what happened was, whereas when you make any other TV show, you get a lot of drawing you in that first episode. Because that's their job. They have to bring you in. They have to hook you. Whereas here, we had Amazon thinking that, oh, we're doing this about a podcast. So the podcast already has a built-in audience that'll just watch it no matter what. And I listened to the podcast. I hated the show. And I think a part of that is definitely like things like them miscasting a bunch of people. Like the boyfriend, Anthony, is played by, what's the guy's name?
Let me check.
It's the second name I gave you.
David Cross. Dermot Mulroney.
Yeah. So in the show, he's played by Dermot Mulroney, who is a beast. He's a great actor. He's been in things like New Girl. He's been in other Julia Roberts stuff. But he always plays like this older, more experienced, like sure about himself guy. And in Homecoming, he plays this like totally sad sack weirdo who's like pining after this woman who clearly wants not a lot to do with him. Like,
and they're in their 40s. It's not like they're
he's wearing
fresh
a big gray mustache. Like,
yeah.
It really sucked to see an actor who plays really well at being like a power character play just a total sub-cuck idiot.
But to be fair, credit to him for taking that role and
playing that
role and like really branching out.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually really do appreciate his performance, and we've spent more time talking about his performance than pretty much.
Yeah.
Like that was probably the best part of it.
But in the podcast, they got David Cross to play that role, who is the king of cucks. He just plays it so well. For the boss, her boss, who's the actor who plays the boss in the show? It's like his last name is
in the show. It's Bobby. Bobby Crocanale.
Crocanale.
Something like that.
Bobby something rather. He's the B actor that you see in B movies playing the B role. He's like, blah, 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 blah. It's just annoying. He's an annoying actor. I don't like his face. And he plays the role that in the podcast was played by David Schwimmer, who's incredible. They should have just taken the cast from the podcast and just paid them the money to be in the show.
So let me ask you this. That's an interesting point. If they were to do that, obviously it would have made the pilot better, but do you think that it would have made it possible for the podcast to transcend into a show? Because that seems to be where our main hang-up is on this, is that it just didn't transition very well. So if they did bring that cast on from the podcast, do you think that would have rectified it, or do you think... No,
it wouldn't have made it watchable. A good cast in a bad movie is still a bad movie.
Yeah.
Or a TV show, you know what I mean? Like, it's more about writing and the way they made it into the show and the lack of budget that Amazon was willing to put up for it and just all sorts of stuff like that. So ultimately it was just not good. Like,
yeah.
Definitely. So as we talked about in the last episode, we have a rating system. Mm-hmm. And our rating system is, I'll get back to it, I'm going to binge it, or I'm begging for more. Where are you at?
I don't think I'll get to it eventually. I mean, if you have like 20 minutes before you're going to bed and you need something to watch that'll put you to sleep, good show.
Yeah, but if you're like me and it just will piss you off to the point where you can't get to sleep, like, don't do that.
Just laying in bed, just like that shit.
Listen, man.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm giving this is the grade of I'll get back to it is because I don't have a lower grade.
I mean, that's fair. You made the rules though.
Yeah,
that was the rules.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
So yeah, it's Amazon. We know you can do better. We love you, but you can do better.
Get back at it.
Yeah.
And pay your employees more or whatever people are upset about.